नरोत्तमम्
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
ततो जयमुदीरयेत्
ततो जयमुदीरयेत्
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
भगवती उत्तमश्लोके
भगवती उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी
भक्तिर्भवतिर्न इष्टिकी
Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1 Chapter 13 Verse 39 Yudhishthira Uvacha
युधिष्ठिर उवाच
Naham Vedagatim Pitror
नाहं वेद गतिं पित्रो
Bhagavan Tvagathavita
भगवन् क्व गताविता
Mbhava Hataputrartha
अम्बावाहत पुत्रात्रा
Kvagatha Cha Tapasvini
क्व गता च तपस्विनी
Yudhishthira Uvacha
युधिष्ठिर उवाच
Naham Vedagatim Pitror
नाहं वेद गतिं पित्रो
Bhagavan Tvagathavita
भगवन् क्व गताविता
Ambavahata Putrartha
अम्बावाहत पुत्रात्रा
Kvagatha Cha Tapasvini
क्व गता च तपस्विनी
Yudhishthira Uvacha
युधिष्ठिर उवाच
Naham Vedagatim Pitror
नाहं वेद गतिं पित्रो
Bhagavan Kvagathavita
भगवन् क्व गताविता
Ambavahata Putrartha
अम्बावाहत पुत्राता
Kvagatha Cha Tapasvini
क्व गता च तपस्विनी
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanaravindra Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
जय
Synonyms, Yudhishthira Uvacha, Maharaja Yudhishthira said,
युधिष्ठिर उवाच महाराजा युधिष्ठिर said
No, do not.
no do not
Aham, myself.
aham myself
Veda, know it.
Veda know it
Gatim, departure.
gatim departure
Pitro, of the uncles.
pitro of the uncles
Bhagavan, O godly personality.
Bhagavan O godly personality
Kva, where.
Qua where
Gathau, gone.
Gatau gone
Itha, from this place.
Ita from this place
Amba, mother aunt.
Amba mother aunt
Va, either.
Va either
Hataputra, bereft of her sons.
Hataputra bereft of her sons
Artha, aggrieved.
Atra grieved
Kva, where.
Qua where
Gatha, gone.
Gata gone
Cha, also.
Cha also
Tapasvini, ascetic.
Tapashvini ascetic
Translation, please repeat after me. Maharaja Yudhishthira said,
Maharaja Yudhishthira said,
O godly personality,
O godly personality,
I do not know where my two uncles have gone,
I do not know where my two uncles have gone,
nor can I find my ascetic aunt who is grief-stricken by the loss of all her sons.
nor can I find my ascetic aunt who is grace-stricken by the loss of all her sons.
Purport.
Maharaja Yudhishthira, as a good soul and devotee of the Lord, was always conscious of the great loss of his aunt and her sufferings as an ascetic. An ascetic is never disturbed by all kinds of sufferings, and that make him strong and determined on the path of spiritual progress. Queen Gandhari is a typical example of an ascetic because of her marvelous character in many trying situations. She was an ideal woman as mother, wife, and ascetic, and in the history of the world, such character in a woman is rarely found.
हरिओम तत्सतोम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रसाय भूतले श्रीमते जयपताक स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमो आचार्यपदाय निताय कृपप्रदायिने गौरकथाधामधाय नगरग्रामधारिणे। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादे पाश्चात्यादेशधारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरिहराय नम कृष्ण यादवाय नम हरे गोपाल गोविंद राम श्रीमधुसूदनां मुखम करो दिवाचालम पंगुर्लंगाय ते गिरिमत् कृपातमहं श्री गुरुम देवतारिणं परमानंदमदं श्री चैतन्यमीश्वरं। हरि ओम तत्सत्. So this is a very beautiful association that Yudhishthira is getting from the Narad Muni. So he is a pure devotee, both Yudhishthira as well as Narad Muni. And Yudhishthira Maharaj had association of Vidura. Now Vidura is also left. So now Yudhishthira is very fortunate to have the association of the great devotee Sri Narad Muni. So he has received with due respect, and then he started inquiring unto Narad Muni. So he said, I don't know where my two uncles have gone, and nor I can find out Gandhari Mata, who is a very great ascetic. So ascetic ladies are very rare to be found in the history, very rare. And Gandhari is very famous ascetic lady. Not only that, she has been an ideal example to be a woman, as a mother, as well as a wife, and as well as an ascetic lady. So we will see also after, what is his name? Dhritarashtra created his yogic potency fire and burned himself to achieve the salvation. Gandhari enters into that. That's an ascetic, ladies, this thing. So now Narad Muni is hearing and he will be answering. So this is a marvelous character of Gandhari, who has been put into many tiring situations and many trials in her lives. And being an ascetic lady, she has come through successfully in all her situations. And now Yudhishthira is very concerned, naturally as a devotee, that what happened to the helpless father and mother, the uncle and aunt, because they had no sons also. Nobody is there to help them in their old age, and they left alone from here. So he was truly concerned, not only as a king, but also as a very affectionate relative to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Now Narad Muni came, Yudhishthira is already half satisfied that because Narad Muni can enter into everyone's heart and he knows everything, he can not only Trikaldarshi, he knows all in all. He's a wonderful spiritual master. So Yudhishthira already got pacified by looking at Narad Muni, and immediately he has expressed his mind to Narad Muni that why he is in anxiety. Now let us see what further Yudhishthira is to say before Narad Muni speaks. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse 14. Karnadhara pare.
Karnadhara pare.
Bhagavan Paradarshaka.
Bhagavan Paradarshaka.
Atha babhashe Bhagavan.
Atha babhase Bhagavan.
Naradho Muni Sattama.
Narado Muni Sattama.
Karnadhara pare.
Karnadhara pare.
Bhagavan Paradarshaka.
Bhagavan Paradarshaka.
Atha babhashe Bhagavan.
Atha babhase Bhagavan.
Naradho Muni Sattama.
Narado Muni Sattama.
Karnadhara pare.
Karnadhara pare.
Bhagavan Paradarshaka.
Bhagavan Paradarshaka.
Atha babhashe Bhagavan.
Atha babhase Bhagavan.
Narado Muni Sattama.
Narado Muni Sattama.
Synonyms. Karnadhara, captain of the ship.
Karnadhara, captain of the ship.
Iva, like.
Iva, like.
Apare, in the extensive ocean.
Apare, in the extensive ocean.
Bhagavan, representative of the Lord.
Bhagavan, representative of the Lord.
Paradarshaka, one who can give directions to other side.
Paradarshaka, one who can give direction to the other side.
Atha, thus.
Atha, thus.
Abhavase, began to stay, say.
Abhavase, began to say.
Bhagavan, the godly personality.
Bhagavan, the godly personality.
Narada, the great sage Narada.
Narada, the great sage Narada.
Munisattama, the greatest among the devotee philosophers.
Munishattama, the greatest among the devotee philosophers.
Narad Muni ki jai. Translation, please repeat after me. You are like a captain of a ship in a great ocean.
You are like a captain of ship in a great ocean.
And you can direct us to our destination.
And you can direct us to our destination.
Thus addressed.
Thus addressed.
The godly personality, Devarshi Narada.
The godly personality, Devarshi Narada.
Greatest of the philosopher devotees.
Greatest of the philosopher devotee.
Began to speak.
Began to speak.
Purport.
Purport. There are different types of philosophers, and the greatest of all of them are those who have seen the personality of Godhead and have surrendered themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Among all such pure devotees of the Lord, Devarshi Narad is the chief, and therefore he has been described herein as the greatest of all philosopher devotee. Unless one has become a sufficiently learned philosopher by hearing the Vedanta philosophy from a bona fide spiritual master, one cannot be a learned philosopher devotee. One must be very faithful, learned, and renounced. Otherwise, one cannot be a pure devotee. A pure devotee of the Lord can give us direction towards the other end of science. Devarshi Narad used to visit the palace of Maharaja Yudhishthir because the Pandavas were all pure devotees of the Lord, and the Devarshi was always ready to give them good counsel whenever needed.
Hari Om Tat Sat. So Devarshi Narada, as soon as he knows he can enter everybody's heart, he can enter anywhere. Devarshi Narada is the greatest of all the devotee philosophers because he has extracted the exposition from the Vedas about pure devotional service. That was one of the wonderful transcendental tasks that he has performed as the incarnation. And he is also Deva Rishi. So he is the sage amongst the demigods. And he's such a personality that he can appear anywhere and everywhere. Like he go to Asuras also, he goes to Pracheda's house, he goes everywhere to liberate the souls. And not only that, this is how he proves himself to be the greatest of preachers, irrespective of, any time, place, and circumstances, or the caste creed, or different species of life. He goes everywhere and preaches. At the same time, when a pure devotees are in anxiety, the Lord sends Narad Muni automatically from within. He is knowing and he comes to give counsel. So he counsels the devotees and he convinces the non-devotees and convert them into a pure devotees by talking of devotional service, by talking of the pastimes of the Lord especially. So this is the nature of Srila Narad Muni. And now as Narad Muni found Yudhishthira and his Pandava family, who are all great and pure devotees of the Lord, is in anxiety. Immediately he appeared there to mitigate their anxiety 100%. And now he is going to counsel Yudhishthira Maharaj. After Bhishmadev, this is the second time Yudhishthira Maharaj again was put into anxiety, and now Narad Muni has come here as a representative of Krishna to give counsel to Yudhishthira and whole Pandava family. So let's see what Narad Muni saying here. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse 41. Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Ma kanchana sucho rajan.
Ma kanchana shucho rajan.
Yad Ishvara Vasham Jagat.
Yad Ishvara Vasham Jagat.
Lokha Sapala Yashyeme.
Loka Sapala Yashyame.
Vahanti Balim Ishitu.
Vahanti Balimishitu.
Sasamyunakti Bhutani.
Sanyunakti Bhutani.
Sa eva viyunakti cha.
Sa eva viyunakti cha.
Narada uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Ma kanchana sucho rajan.
Ma kanchana shucho rajan.
Yad Ishvara Vasam Jagat.
Yad Ishvara Vasam Jagat.
Lokha Sapala Yasyeme.
Loka Sapala Yasyeme.
Vahanti Balim Ishitu.
Vahanti Balimishitu.
Sasamyunakti Bhutani.
Sanyunakti Bhutani.
Sa eva viyunakti cha.
Sa eva viyunakti cha.
Narada uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Ma kanchana sucho rajan.
Kanchana Suchorajan
Yad Ishvara Vasam Jagat
Yadishvara Vasam Jagat
Loka Sapala Yasyeme
Loka Sapala Yasyeme
Vahanti Balim Ishitu
Vahanti Balimishitu
Sasamyunakti Bhutani
Sasanyunakti Bhutani
Sa Eva Viyunakti Cha.
Savinakti Cha.
Synonyms. Narada Uvacha. Narada said.
Narada said,
Ma, never.
Ma, never.
Kanchana, by all means.
Kanchana, by all means.
Sucha, do you lament?
Sucha, do you lament?
Rajan, O king.
Rajan, O king.
Yet, because
Yet, because
Ishvara Vasham, under the control of the Supreme Lord.
Ishvara Vasham, under the control of the Supreme Lord.
Jagat, world.
Jagat, world.
Loka, all living beings.
Loka, all living beings.
Sapala, including their leaders.
Chapala, including their leaders.
Yasya, whose.
Yasya, whose.
Ime, all these.
Ine, all these.
Vahanti, do bear.
Vahanti, do bear.
Balim, means of worship.
Valim, means of worship.
Ishitu, for being protected.
Ishitu, for being protected.
Sa, he.
Sa, he.
Samyunakti, gets together.
Samyunakti, gets together.
Bhutani, all living beings.
Bhutani, all living beings.
Sa, he.
Sa, he.
Eva, also.
Eva, also.
Viyunakti, disperses.
Viyunakti, disperses.
Cha, and.
Cha, and.
Translation, please repeat after me. Sri Narada said,
Sri Narada said,
O pious king,
O pious king,
do not lament for anyone,
do not lament for anyone,
for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord.
for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord.
Therefore, all living beings and their leaders,
all living beings and their leaders,
carry on worship to be well protected.
Carry on worship to be well protected.
It is He only who brings them together and disperses them.
It is He only who brings them together and disperses them.
Narad Muni ki jai. Purport.
Purport.
Every living being, either in this material world or in the spiritual world, is under the control of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Beginning from Brahmaji, the leader of this universe, down to the insignificant ant, all are abiding by the order of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the constitutional position of the living being is subordination under the control of the Lord. The foolish living being, especially man, artificially rebels against the law of the Supreme and thus becomes chastised as an Ashura or lawbreaker. A living being is placed in a particular position by the order of the Supreme Lord, and he is again shifted from that place by the order of the Supreme Lord or his authorized agents. Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Chandra, Maharaja Yudhishthira, or in modern history, Napoleon, Akbar, Alexander, Gandhi, Subhash, and Nehru, all are servants of the Lord, and they are placed in and removed from their respective positions by the supreme will of the Lord. None of them is independent. Even though such men or leaders rebel so as not to recognize the supremacy of the Lord, they are put under still more rigorous laws of the material world by different miseries. Only the foolish man, therefore, says that there is no God. Maharaja Yudhishthira was being convinced of this naked truth because he was greatly overwhelmed by the sudden departure of his old uncles and aunt. Maharaja Dhritarashtra was placed in that position according to his past deeds. He had already suffered or enjoyed the benefits accrued to him in the past, but due to his good luck, somehow or other he had a good younger brother, Vidura, and by his instruction he left to achieve salvation by choosing all accounts in the material world. Ordinarily, one cannot change the course of one's due happiness and distress by plan. Everyone has to accept them as they come under the subtle arrangement of Kala or invincible time. There is no use trying to counteract them. The best thing is therefore that one should endeavor to achieve salvation, and this prerogative is given only to man because of his developed condition of mental activities and intelligence. Only for man are there different Vedic instructions for attainment of salvation during the human form of existence. One who misuses this opportunity of advancing intelligence is verily condemned and put into different types of miseries, either in this present life or in the future. That is the way the Supreme controls everyone.
Hari Om Tat Sat. So Narad Muni is very beautifully advising that why are you lamenting for anyone, because everybody is full under the full control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. So whether they are followers or they are leaders, everybody is well protected by the Lord, and it is the Supreme Lord who brings them together and who disperses them. So all the activities are performed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either directly or through his agents. Prabhupada further explains this statement in his very beautiful purport, that how from beginning from Brahma and to down to the insignificant ant, everybody is actually abiding by the order of the Supreme Lord. And what is the original constitution position of the living being is naturally to be subordination under the control of the Lord. Now, either you are rebel against Lord or you love the Lord. In both cases, one is subordinate controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The difference is that one who is surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead by dint of activity which are transcendental, loving devotional service unto him, is directly protected by the Sattva Tampati, the protector of his devotees. Whereas others, those who rebelled against Krishna and engaged in their own sense gratification, they are also controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his agent, which is Maya, which is the external energy of Krishna. So in this way, everybody is anyway controlled by him only. Those who are making big plans, those stalwarts, rebellious leaders, a few were listed by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. They made plans to achieve success, and they existed for some time with the sanction of the Lord only. They performed what they performed, and by the will of the Lord only, they are also finished. Whether the plan is succeeded or not, they won't even know. So this is the material thing. Everything is temporary. Everything has a beginning and end. Nobody's plan is going to work here on the material plane, for the plan of the Lord has already been implemented by the external energy of the Lord. Why should the external energy of the Lord, who is the very, very great servant of the Lord, accept your plan against the Lord's plan? Why? There is no reason. So you will be put under the illusion as if your plan is going to be executed, but actually she carries out the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Kala is there even above all the energies, which will see to that everything is destroyed, whether it's your plan or anybody else's plan. So the Supreme Lord's plan is to ensure every living entity experiences that nothing is permanent here. Only pure and loving devotional service is permanent, and that is by dint of the relationship, eternal relationship by the eternal Jiva Bhuta. So this is very, very important point to understand, and Narad Muni is putting it in one single statement, and Srila Prabhupada has explained for us to understand what Narad Muni was telling Yudhishthira. So in this way, Yudhishthira Maharaj was convinced by Srila Narad Muni, and because Yudhishthira was suddenly shocked by the unexpected departure of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. So he was in so much anxiety, he found himself at fault that he has not taken care of them very nicely. So they they got disappointed and left like that. It is natural for a devotee to think himself only at fault, and he never finds fault in others. That is the nature of pure devotee like Yudhishthira. And pure devotee like Narada, immediately sent by the Lord in order to mitigate the anxiety of Yudhishthira. And Narada Muni comes here to just remind Maharaja Yudhishthira, because Maharaja Yudhishthira is already a pure devotee. He knows all the truth. But he has been put in a situation by the Lord, so he is shocked. And Narad Muni's association he has got as a result. And now Yudhishthira will be pacified by the statement of Narad Muni. And the Narad Muni is explaining it, that everything is happening by the sanction of the Lord, or by the Lord or his agents only. Nobody can change the course of their happiness and distress by their so-called plan. None of that plan will be accepted. The subtle kala time will destroy everything, and ultimately. So if you try to counteract the time will always win and you will die. And this is the history that we have seen in the past, and we're seeing in the present, and we will continue to see in the future if we exist on the material plane and not taking to the devotional service. There's only one way to surpass the time, to conquer the material activities, that is to take to a pure unalloyed loving devotional service to Krishna. That is intelligent. Yajantihi sumedasha. Intelligent persons will take to the process of devotional service according to the yuga and dharma that they are supposed to do that. So those intelligent persons can get the association of a pure devotee, hear from them constantly, and purify themselves and engage themselves into the loving devotional service without any tinge of material attachment, so that they don't come back on this material plane to be crushed by the plan of the material nature, the agent of Krishna. So this is very, very important. Somehow or the other Yudhishthira, was told by Narada that Dhritarashtra was fortunate enough to have an association of Vidura who has directed him in the path of salvation. If he would have been here in the palace, you would be taking care of him nicely, but he will not get the salvation. Rather, he would get much entangled. So he has to be protected even from you, because you are taking care of him according to his own whims and whims. No, but he has to find his own salvation. So Vidura has guided him accordingly. So this is the purport to the purport of the Lord. Now time is 7:40. Okay, maybe we can see one more slokam. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse 42. Yatha ghavo nasi prothas. Santyam baddhascha dhamabhi.
Asantyan Vaschadamabhi.
Vaktantyam namabhir baddha.
Vaktantyam Marvidya.
Vahanti balimisitu.
Vahanti Balishitu.
Yatha gavo nasi prothas.
Yatha Gavo Nasti Prota.
Santyam baddhascha dhamabhi.
Astantyam Vadashchadamabhi.
Vaktantyam namabhir baddha.
Vaktantyam namabhibhadha.
Vahanti balimisitu.
Vahanti balimisitu.
Yatha gavo nasi prothas.
Yatha gavo nasi protas.
Tantyam Bhagdaschadamavi.
Tantyam
Bhaddhaschatamadhi.
Vaktantyam Nama Virbadda.
Vaktantyam nama bhirbadha.
Vahanti Balimishitu.
Vahanti balimishitu.
Synonyms. Yatha, as much as.
Yatha, as much
Yatha, as much
as.
as.
Gava, cow.
Gava, cow.
Cow.
Nasi, by the nose.
Nasi,
Nasi, by
by
the
the
nose.
nose.
Protha, strung.
Prota,
strung.
strung.
Tantyam, by the thread.
Tantyam, by the thread.
Bhagdha, bound by.
Baddha, bound by.
Bound by.
Cha, also.
Cha, also.
Also.
Damabhi, by ropes.
Damabhi, by ropes.
By ropes.
Vaktantyam, in the network of Vedic hymns.
Vaktantyam, in the network of Vedic hymns.
Vedic hymns.
Namabhi, by nomenclatures.
Namabhi, by nomenclatures.
Bhagdha, conditioned.
Baddha, conditioned.
Vahanti, carry on.
Vahanti, carry on.
Balim, orders.
Balim, order.
Orders.
Ishitu, for being controlled by the Supreme.
Ishitu, for being controlled by the Supreme Lord.
Translation. As a cow bound through the nose by a long rope is conditioned.
As a cow bound through the nose by a long rope is conditioned.
So also human beings are bound by different Vedic injunctions.
So also human beings are bound by different
Vedic injunctions.
And are conditioned to obey the orders of the Supreme.
And are conditioned to obey orders of the Supreme.
Purport. Every living being, whether a man or an animal or a bird, thinks that he is free by himself, but actually no one is free from the severe laws of the Lord. The laws of the Lord are severe because they cannot be disobeyed in any circumstance. The man-made laws may be evaded by cunning outlaws, but in the courts of the supreme lawmaker, there is not the slightest possibility of neglecting the laws. A slight change from the course of God-made law can bring about a massive danger to be faced by the lawbreaker. Such laws of the Supreme are generally known as the courts of religion under different conditions, but the principle of religion everywhere is one and the same, namely, to obey the orders of the Supreme God. The courts of religion, that is the condition of material existence. All living beings in the material world have taken up the risk of conditioned life by their own selection and are thus entrapped by the laws of material nature. The only way to get out of the entanglement is to agree to obey the Supreme. But instead of becoming free from the clutches of Maya or illusion, foolish human beings become bound by the become bound up by different nomenclatures, being designated as Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, Hindus, Mohammedans, Indians, Europeans, Americans, Chinese, and many others. And thus they carry out the orders of the Supreme Lord under the influence of respective scriptural and legislative injunctions. The statutory laws of the state are imperfect imitation replicas of religious codes. The secular state or the godless state allows the citizens to break the laws of God, but restricts them from disobeying the laws of the state. The result is that the people in general suffer more by breaking the laws of God than by obeying the imperfect laws made by man. Every man is imperfect by constitution under conditions of material existence, and there is not the least possibility that even the most materially advanced man can enact perfect legislation. On the other hand, there is no such imperfection in the laws of God. If leaders are educated in the laws of God, there is no necessity of a makeshift legislative council of aimless men. There is a necessity of change in the makeshift laws of man, but there is no change in the God-made laws because they are made perfect by by the all perfect personality of Godhead. The codes of religion, scriptural injunctions are made by liberated representatives of God in consideration of different conditions of living. And by carrying out the orders of the Lord, the conditioned living beings gradually become free from the clutches of material existence. The factual position of the living being is, however, that he is the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. In his liberated state, he renders service to the Lord in transcendental love and thus enjoys a life of full freedom, even sometimes on an equal level with the Lord, or sometimes more than the Lord. But in the conditioned material world, every living being wants to be the Lord of other living beings. And thus, by the illusion of Maya, this mentality of lording it over becomes a cause of further extension of conditional life. So, in the material world, the living being is still more conditioned until he surrenders unto the Lord by reviving his original state of eternal servitorship. That is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita and all other recognized scriptures of the world.
Hari Om Tat Sat. So, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Paritechya Mamekam Sharanam Vracha. Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Masucha. So by giving up all so-called Kaitava Dharma, so-called following rules and regulation, man-made, which is the Parvati reflection of the original God-made laws, and surrender unto the Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is very important. So Narad Muni is instructing Yudhishthira here about the, how things are working here in the material world. Just like a cow bound through the nose by a long rope, it is conditioned. In the similar way, the human beings are also conditioned by different Vedic injunctions. The original living being in original constitutional position is supposed to carry out the order of the Lord. The orders of the Lords are so perfect. The law of God need not undergo any modification like our constitutional law, that Amendment 1, Amendment 2, Amendment 3, Amendment N will keep coming. But Lord's law, there is no amendment at all till today. So only once made by Krishna, and then and only, that law of God is never modified or never done anything. So he can only make it easier and easier for the people. Of course, Lord Chaitanya made only one amendment for the Kali Yuga people to be very easy, adoptable, so that others will not disturb chanting the holy name. So from the Hare Rama, yes, change the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, this amendment is not because of defect of the Lord. This amendment is to facilitate everybody otherwise who were not authorized to chant, also to chant the holy name of the Lord. So this is the beauty of Lord's making law. We are not law makers, but unfortunately we became the law breakers. So when we break the law, rebel against Lord, we have been put under the stringent law of material nature. Just like an ordinary citizen is a good citizen, is found to be a good citizen only when he is abide by the legislative law. When he violates the legislative rule, he is put into prison, wherein he has to undergo stringent law, which is very difficult to adopt. In the similar way, dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, the real dharma of the living entity as an eternal constitutional position is to simply perform devotional, loving devotional service unto Adokshaja Krishna, and that is the way he surrenders unto Krishna fully, completely. But on the other hand, when he rebelled against that particular law, which will keep him very happy, he has to be forced into a material existence by stringent law of material nature, wherein he will suffer dukkhalayam asaswatam. In jail, you cannot expect a facility to enjoy life. In the similar way, this particular material world is called dukkha alayam. It is full of miseries and sufferings. You cannot expect a facility to enjoy here in the material world. There is only one position, that is your original position as a Mamaivamso Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Every Jiva Bhuta is an eternal part and parcel of Krishna, and Dharmam to Sakshat Bhagavad Pranitam, and the activity that particular occupational activity of the living entity is to simply surrender unto Krishna. Krishna says this in so many different ways. He says, Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Raja. Straight away he says, you give up all these nonsensical activities and religious principles so-called that you are following for sense gratification, Kaitava Dharma, and you surrender unto me. Here it is also said in Bhagavatam, Dharma Projita Kaitava Atra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. So the pure devotees give up all the Kaitava Dharma, the fruitive result activities specified in the Karma Khanda or Jnana Kanda, and give up all these things. Anya Vilasita Sunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavrtam. Give up all this Jnana and Karma and so much of Ashtanga Yoga and everything, and simply establish in the, without any tinge of Anya Abhilasha, any other desire, Anukulyana Krishna Anusilanam. So only accept all favorable situation to perform pure loving devotion service unto Krishna. Bhakti Uttama, that is Uttama Bhakti. Krishna also tells Bhakti Mama Bijanati. Only by such particular pure devotion service will you be able to contact Krishna and re-establish yourself in the eternal blissful situation, uninterrupted pleasure, and your original constitution position, and you can re-establish in the blissfulness of the lost relationship with Krishna. So what is the duty of the jiva is yato bhaktir atokshate. Just perform devotion service unto adokshaja Krishna. So that is the only job that we are supposed to do, not that make laws. By virtue of God-made law, the man will make law, and then that law cannot be perfect, so he will bring in amendment. In this way, the so-called lawmakers, who are actually the lawbreaker of the Supreme Lord, though this will not give any solace to the human society, this will not give any salvation or any relief to their sufferings and misery. So all these laws are made for increasing their so-called sense gratification. But God-made law is to release you from the jail and then bring you back home, back to Godhead. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha tattva deham punarjanma naiti mameti saunteya. So this is the verdict in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that anyone who by dint of Yevam Parampara Praptam, so by dint of connecting himself to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's Parampara, by surrendering unto spiritual master, accepting him as spiritual master, he will understand Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam. Krishna's appearance and Krishna's activities are totally transcendental, and one if understands that, he will not take rebirth in the material world upon giving up his body, but he will come back to Krishna, back home, back to Godhead. So this verdict is very clearly specified here. Okay, so the living entities unnecessarily taking risk in this material world or their conditioned state for their own sense gratification, and they get further entrapped by the laws of nature. So there is no other way to get out of the entanglement other than obey the supreme dharmam to sakshat bhagavat pranitham. So surrender unto Krishna. Then you will be able to get freedom from clutches of Maya or illusion. However, the foolish human beings, instead of becoming free from the Maya, they entangle themselves further and further with the different nomenclatures, as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, as Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Hindus, Mohammedans, Indian, European, American, I am this, I am that, all these kind of bodily designations which never was there before your birth and will not be there after your death. So it's a temporary identity card, which is not you actually, it's a false identity card, just like that. So that is not necessary, right? So just like in a company, you get an identity card when you join the company, and with the identity card you can enter into the company, you can perform your work, and you can come out, and that identity card is temporary as long as you are a worker there. As soon as you quit the job, your identity card is snatched away, and you join another company, you get another identity card. In this way, we are quitting one body to another body to another body. What is the need? What is the need to maintain ourselves in the conditioned state? If a prisoner go to prison, if a faulty person goes to prison, will he try to maintain himself in the prison, or will he try to come out of the prison? By hook or crook, he wants to get out of the prison. So the same thing is suggested here also, from the material clutch, by hook or crook. So there is only one way, that is to accept the bona fide spiritual master and start performing devotional service. And in this Kali Yuga, it's very easy. Start by chanting Hare Krishna. There are 9 types of devotional service that you can practice from anywhere. Griheta ko, vaneta ko, sadahari boleta ko. Doesn't matter you are a grahastha, you are a vanaprastha, you are in the forest, or you are at home, you are working or you are not working, you are a student or you are male or a female. No bodily designation does matter here. Even animals have chanted and danced in ecstasy in Jharkhand by the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What to speak of then being a human being or Brahmana or anything? Even animals could achieve this particular Mahabhava state and danced in ecstasy. We have visited just a couple of days back in the Jharkhand, where in the exact place Kuju, where the animals, unlimited amount of animals surrounding Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, dancing in ecstasy in 2 legs, and their foot has melted the rocks on these Kuju mountains because of their Mahabhava state. And different animals together, like huge forest elephants and huge tigers, deers, and whatnot. Even python, several different python, from 5-headed to single head, all kind of species. You can see their footprint here when you visit Kuju. So this is true. This is the state of Mahabhava. If animals could also display such Mahabhava symptoms and go back home, back to Godhead, they all went back home. What to speak of human being? Simply chanting the same Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, they also got relieved. So being a human being, we have some common sense. At least we can see, witness them, and then we can take to the process. Anyway, we are living like animals. Then follow the animals of Jharkhand. Okay, which has danced in ecstasy with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is the supreme sense gratification. So they all attained the liberation, the pure and eternal loving devotion service to Krishna in the Mahabhava stage, which is very rarely achieved, or which has never been achieved in any other parampara or any other system of varnashrama and so-called religious principles. So this is pure and eternal and unconditional and unrestricted devotional service that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has introduced. So rather than trying to follow the legislative assembly law and amendments and conditioning and entangling one more time, more and more entanglement, it is better to surrender unto Krishna by simply chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, reviving the lost relationship, the servitorship. Jiva's original constitutional position is Nitya Krishna Dasa. So we have to revive our original position. Okay, why I am doing Dasa, Dasya to so many other Dasas. Here in the conditioned state, forgetting their original relationship, and nobody is happy. Throughout life, I am serving my wife, my kids, my family, my village, my city, my country, my UNO, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the life, neither I am satisfied nor anyone to whom I have rendered is satisfied. That is because the point I am missing where to render my service. Service is what my nature of existence, but devotional service, pure unalloyed, loving devotional service to Krishna is the platform where I exist happily. And thus I can make others also happy if I am engaged in the pure unalloyed, loving devotional service to Krishna, starting with chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna and hearing and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. So Narad Muni is here to, show that particular wonderful path, and Bhagavad Gita and any other recognized scripture of the world also says the same thing. Thank you very much. So any questions or comments or realization, please do share with us. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank you very much for the association. So let's resume our class tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock after chanting the holy name of the Lord. Till then, Grandra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
जय
पतित पावन श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय
पतित पावन श्रील गुरु महाराज की जय।
जय
सत्संग की जय।
जय
जय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि
हरि हरि
हरि
बोल।
बोल। वाञ्छ कल्पतरुभ्यश्च
कल्पतरुभ्यश्च
कृपा
कृपा
सिन्धुभ्य
सिन्धुभ्यैव
एव च
च
पतितानां
पतितानां
पावनेभ्यो
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
वैष्णवेभ्यो
नमो